What's good, guys? This is Kid Achilles, and we are back with another Obi-Wan episode discussion. But before we get into it, go ahead and like and subscribe. That would really help me out. And the best part is, you never miss an update. But no need to waste any more time. Let's get into this. All right, so this has been episode 4, and I am really digging the kind of parallels at the beginning of each episode. And this time we have both Vader and Obi-Wan squirming around in their like healing tanks. Now, Vader spends a lot of time in this thing. I imagine that even, with as far as technology has come in like the Star Wars universe, based on the extent of his injuries, he's probably always in some sort of perpetual pain. And it kind of just seems like whenever he's like not out being an asshole, he's just chilling in this healing tank. You don't ever see Vader just like shooting the shit or like having a snack. But yeah, we see Vader squirming around in his healing tank. I imagine because he's angry, it just seems like a constant condition for him. And we see Obi-Wan kind of flailing around. He's having flashbacks to the fight that just took place. And soon enough, he wakes up, kind of comes out of the tank, and immediately, he needs to know where Leia is at. Tala lets him know that they are on Jabim and that they've hit another spot on the path, which again is that kind of like Jedi Underground Railroad kind of deal. I really loved like O'Shea Jackson Jr.'s his role in the episode, but I like seeing him whatever he's in. I think he's pretty great. Little Ice Cube Jr. But they pretty much have all the cards stacked against them. Obi-Wan insists on sneaking into Fortress Inquisitoris despite the risks. They don't have great ships. It's a fucking fortress. But Obi-Wan doesn't care. He says, we have working ships here and I need to save Leia. I don't need anyone to go with me, but I do need to go. But as always, Super Clutch Tala has his back. And so those two set off. They're heading towards Fortress Inquisitoris. Getting better at saying that. On the way there, we see that Obi-Wan is still having a hard time using the Force. There's like a small object on the table in front of him and he's just trying to move it. And it's moving pretty slowly, but he's obviously still leagues away from his former self and his former abilities. There seems to be an emphasis on time and conversation between Tala and Obi-Wan. Tala keeps telling him that, he just needs to give himself time. And she says that when she sees him kind of like struggling to use the Force again. Based on how the episode plays out, we see Obi-Wan kind of buck back against that a little bit. All right, we cut over to Reva interrogating Leia. Our girl's having a rough time, but she's staying stern. We see Reva trying to use the Force to kind of, break Leia's will or see into her mind to get the information that she's looking for, and she's not able to do it. Now at face value, it seems like Leia is just remaining stalwart and keeping her guard up as to keep Reva out. Leia is confirmed to be Force sensitive, and though it's not touched on, I'm wondering, could this be a moment when she maybe is subconsciously or reflexively using the Force to repel what Reva's doing with the Force to try and get into her mind? So that was a thought I had. You can let me know what you think about that. So slowly we're kind of learning more and more about Reva. Lola flies out of Leia's pocket and Reva catches her, obviously. What the fuck was she gonna do? And then Reva reveals that she too once had a droid of her own before everything was taken from her. So we're getting small pieces here and there. Still difficult to kind of like make the bigger picture of exactly what went on with Reva, but there's only 2 episodes left, so I get the feeling that we'll be finding out soon. Leia refuses to give anything up, and so she's taken away to like real big person torture. Now this obviously sucks for Leia, but I think the bigger thing for me here is in the Fallen Order, this is the same place and the same method in which the second sister was tortured, and that's how she was converted to the dark side. So they do some pretty sinister shit here, and like there's more about that as we like get further into the episode, because like Obi-Wan comes across that weird tomb. But torture doesn't just extend to having like fucked up Jedi or like killing these folks. This extreme torture that the Inquisitors are putting people through also has the potential to turn people to the dark side, which is explained, like I said, in the Fallen Order as what happened to the second sister when she was taken away from her master. So it just gets me thinking. I'm hoping a certain Jedi maybe makes an appearance in these next 2 episodes. But I gotta say, man, my stomach was in my ass this entire episode. Tala sneaking into the fortress really fucking had me sweating. I was really impressed with the way that she flopped roles with that guard that initially stopped her. He was very much assailing her initially, and then, it turned around so that he was kind of in a feeble position, allowing her to like gain entry further into the fortress, which was super risky, but definitely worked out for her. I do really enjoy that actress. I don't know her name at the moment. Maybe I'll just like put it here. But she's like the mother of the sand snakes in Dorne in Game of Thrones, and she was really rad in that role too. 2 for 2 of things I've seen her in. Also, I really need these guys to invest in some earpieces. There is no reason that Obi-Wan and Tala should be walking around a fucking fortress filled with stormtroopers and inquisitors and everything in between, essentially having each other on speakerphone or with walkie-talkies like they're just playing in the backyard. Come on, guys. We have got to get them some earpieces. Alright, so back to this tomb business. This was a really eerie part, and I have questions. Are these people dead? I know that some or most of them are Jedi, but are they all Jedi? If they aren't Jedi, then I have to assume that they were at least Force sensitive, because we also see a youngling that's kind of been encapsulated who still has his training helmet on. I guess some of my questions are, is this a tomb? If so, that's super weird, because that also serves as like some kind of like fucked up trophy room, which wouldn't be off-brand for the Inquisitors. They seem to be a very merit-based group based on how they try to and do attain power, which is like interesting because they are super duper trying to impress Vader all the time, but Vader is very much the opposite, where he doesn't really give a shit about mementos. You know, his goal is power, and you know, whoever he needs to crush, kill, or otherwise to get there, he's going to do that supremely. But if they aren't tombs, then I can only assume that they're being preserved for some reason. And that makes me think of all the experiments that we know that Palpatine ultimately ends up doing, you know, in his quest for an immortal body. I guess that lends itself more to these captives being Force sensitive in some way, because if they are being kept around for experimentation, then that means that Palpatine is maybe using their midichlorians for something, which we know is on brand for him, because that's how Anakin is ever born in the first place anyway. But anywho, little Leia is about to be super duper tortured, but it's Tala to the rescue again, team on her back. It was a little shaky this time. I kind of expected Reva to just kill her. Glad that didn't happen, but I was nervous. So the lights out Obi-Wan lightsaber scene was super fucking cool. I wasn't expecting it because admittedly Obi-Wan has kind of been stumbling his way through fights so far. And not to say that this was Obi-Wan in tip-top shape, but it was still refreshing to see and nice to feel that kind of excitement for Obi-Wan again. Throughout this rescue as the episode goes on, Obi-Wan's like getting his sauce back. He definitely looks way more comfortable with that lightsaber. He's deflecting shots like left and right, literally. And his Force reservoir seems to have refilled a little bit. You know, he's doing some fancy work with the window when they're underwater. Now, the only difference between now and before is that desperation really seems to bridge that gap that he's having trouble bridging himself. We see it in the second episode when he saves Leia the first time, like catches her. That's the first we see of him using the Force. And then this time again, just from the beginning of the episode, heading toward the end of it, he's having trouble moving that small kind of object like across the table. But you know, when it's crunch time and Leia's life is on the line, that's like multiplied tenfold. He's holding back the pressure from the sea outside of this broken window, you know, so it can build up and then flood this corridor, which he does really successfully. So it shows how much he cares for Leia. Also gives us an idea as to what powers Obi-Wan's connection to the Force. It's love. And another thought I had during this was like, ultimately battling Anakin is the cause of Obi-Wan losing his connection to the Force in the first place, because that fight obviously had a big emotional toll on him, and just everything else that came along with that, and like the rise of the Empire forced him to go into hiding, and all those things together, you know, made it not necessary for him to be connected to the Force, and also just hard for him to connect to it in general. But here we have one of Anakin's children who is helping him restore that connection to the Force, because before, where he had to use the Force to beat Anakin and, you know, strike him down, he's building a connection back to it by saving one of Anakin's children. I hope that made sense. Redemption. Alright, so my girl Reva is having a bad time. Vader is really strutting down the hallway and he is pissed. Luckily, she failed because Leia and Obi-Wan get away, but she reveals that she put a tracker in Lola, which ultimately helps her duck a fade, but she is playing a really dangerous game. The fifth brother is tilted as usual, so we'll see if he does any funny shit in these next 2 episodes. I'm just gonna come out and say it, man. I am really hoping we meet Cal Kestis at some point. I would just love that. We've gotten a few references, you know, for stuff relating to the Fallen Order. I don't know, man. I'm holding out hope. Letting you know now, if it happens, I am going to freak out. But yeah, as always, I appreciate you guys kicking it with me. This has been Kid Achilles. If you haven't already, go ahead and like and subscribe. That would really help me out, and I'll definitely be back super soon with the next one. So, peace out.